Hello, Lab members and Steins fans. Here's one here, and welcome to this new episode of Oka-Talk, the series where I talk about Steins and Steins only. Now, this video will have spoilers, and if you haven't played Steins 0 yet, and you're waiting for the anime release, and you don't want to get spoiled, don't watch this. It's really that simple. But you should have played the visual novel already, so shame on you for not being a true fan and not actually doing what you should be doing, because the visual novels are better than the show. Now, before we get started, I just want to say again, this is a topic that I thought about today. I thought it was really interesting, wanted to discuss it with you guys. I prepared a little thing, that's why it's so empty over here. So let's just get started and set the situation. So right now we have episode, I think it's 23 or 24, I'm pretty sure it's episode 23. And Okabe goes back with his time machine, okay? We're at the end of the series. Now he has gone back in time to save his girlfriend Kurisu from certain death. Which ended up a huge failure. So he goes out of, the time machine. He's sad, and he wants to give up. He wants to give up on saving her. It's not possible. We can't get to the Steins Gate timeline where no one dies and he's happy and he's a cool little mad scientist. Now, at this moment, while he wants to give up, this message, he gets a message on his phone, like, bzz, 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 and it's actually a message from the future him that decided to give up, saying that you shouldn't. Try again, and you will reach the Steins Gate timeline. So that said, this dude has a little bit of hope, and goes back, saves her, gets in the Steins Gate timeline, lives happily ever after. Wow, or at least you think, because he doesn't. For a while, at least. It's kind of tragic. I'll tell you about it. But the problem is, or the topic for today is, what happens to the Okabe from the message from the future when Okabe, this one, changes the timeline and reaches the Steins Gate timeline. Now, before we start that, I want to talk about timelines in general, how they work, and reading Steiner as well. So first of all, timelines. You guys, if you played the visual novel or seen this show, you should have a good idea of how they work. However, it's still complicated. So let's just get into it real quickly. So basically, there's multiple timelines. You can change from timeline. Well, Okabe can, and because of his reading Steiner, when he changes timeline, basically and reaches a new history, does something else, a world where something else has happened, he keeps his memories from his previous timeline. He just keeps all his memories, while the memories of the other ones or the other people get overwritten with history in that world. Now, there's only one active timeline when Okabe's there, so there's only one active timeline. There's no multiple, Okabes running around doing the same thing. It's a story that he ends up in, and that's the world by then. Okay, so he gets there, that's the world. He gets to another timeline, that world disappears. It doesn't exist anymore, and then where he is now is the current situation, the new timeline, basically. So, let's say there's no other Okabes. That's the thing. There's no other. Everywhere he goes, there's only one of each. There's one Mayuri. There's one this, there's one that, because there's only one active timeline. So the other timelines basically don't exist when he goes there. So let's say the timeline where Kurisu dies, when he goes to the timeline that Mayuri dies, the timeline that Kurisu dies doesn't exist at all. There's no alternate universe where it happened anyway, because it doesn't exist. One active timeline. So there's that. Now that we have established how that works, reading Steiner. Now, Okabe has this power where he can travel through timeline and keep his memory from other timelines, from everything he did. So just, your memory as a basic human being. Now, while all the memories of the other people get overwritten if they're not dead. A few people have like a deja vu thingy-ish, but, we're talking about Okabe. He seems to have the strongest version of it. Now, the problem with this is that when he goes to a different timeline, there's a new story written for him. So he did something else, right? But he doesn't remember that. He remembers everything he remembered from his travels, his journeys, but not what happened in the timeline and the story that is set for him. So, for example, when he goes to the Gamma timeline, I think it's Gamma, tell me if I'm wrong, and he ends up finding out that he's a rounder, actually. He didn't know that, because those memories from that story, that Okabe, were overwritten with this one, which means that it's just he doesn't remember that. It never happened for him. And this is where we're going with my topic, with my with the story for today. So there's 3 Okabes that we know of. We have Okabe, the first season, first game Okabe. We have Steins Gate Zero Okabe, which is Okabe from Steins Gate Zero and the second season of the show, which is coming out very soon. Excited. And then there's another Okabe within Steins Gate Zero, which we don't know. We don't know a lot. Well, we do know him, but I'm gonna call him ReZero Okabe now. Just to make sure, 3 Okabes. Okay, so ReZero Okabe, Zero Okabe, and just Okabe. That's how I'm gonna call them. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, here's the thing. If Okabe fails to save Kurisu, he gives up. He ends up being or going through the steps to become this Okabe. They're one and the same because he got the message from himself from the future, not a different timeline. You can only send messages back to your current world, but you can't send messages across worlds, across timelines, right? So all of these exist in the same world, but in a different time. They're all the same, right? So basically, as I just said, Okabe gets his message from him, like bzz, bzz, he gets his message, and he says, "Yo, if you don't do this, you're gonna fail. You're gonna get depressed. You're gonna end up like me, because that's what happened." Now, the thing that changes the timeline is the action that he takes after that. So you have the same timeline. You get the message from sender to receiver, and then it's up to the receiver to change the actions that this one did basically, changing the timeline. Therefore, shifting the timeline for this Okabe as well. And this is really a problem. This is a problem for this Okabe in the Steins Gate timeline. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. You have Okabe here, and this Okabe, the one that sent Zero Okabe that sent the message through time, is already in World War III. He's in war. This is in 2025 or something. It's madness, right? So everything's messed up, and we're in war, and this Okabe is. He regrets, his love of his life died and all that kind of stuff. He regrets it. He wants to make up for it, but he can't. He's not strong enough. He doesn't have the power to do it. So this Okabe, right, this one, gets a message from another Okabe. So this one gets like bzz, 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 a D-Rhine. It's a Rhine version of the D-mail from our ReZero Okabe. So actually, what that means is that the first Okabe that we know of, because we can only send message back in time, so the Okabe that's highest up in the timeline is our ReZero Okabe. So let's go back to ReZero Okabe. We have ReZero Okabe, and he is a farther in time than Zero Okabe. Now it doesn't matter when he sent the message, but we know that he is higher in the timeline, and that Zero Okabe sends his little message to Okabe around during the World War, which is around 10 years, 15 years later, right? So we're in a war here, and this Okabe is done. He doesn't want to. He gets strong enough. He needs to tell the Okabe in the past to change everything, reach the Steins Gate timeline. It is possible to deceive the world. So this guy is still he's still fighting and stuff. He's just part of the resistance, doing his thing, but he doesn't want this. This isn't the future that he wanted. So what he does is that he gets his phone, sends his D-Rhine to this Okabe, Zero Okabe, and he gets a message saying, "Dude, you can receive the world. It is possible. Do it." But at this time, it's already too late for this Okabe. He can't. Zero Okabe isn't able to go back in time that far. Well, he actually is, but from the story that we're going to, he can't. He's not able to do it. So what is his plan? It's easy. He sends a message. This phone, to this Okabe, saying, "Hey, don't make the same mistake I did, or else we'll be fucked. I don't want to live like this. Now here's the problem. Or well, the problem for this Okabe. Because, as I said, when timelines change, the memory gets overwritten on the current Okabe of that story. So the Okabe of the story that we're following, of the original series or the original season, is the story of Okabe and his journey to the Steins Gate timeline. Now, he does reach the Steins Gate timeline. He reaches it, right? What happens to this Okabe is really easy. He sends his email, or his D-mail, he sends it, or his D-video actually. He sends the video. After he does that, Okabe changes his actions, therefore changing timeline. Now this Okabe, as you've seen in the other times they use the same experience, gets into the same timeline as well. The timeline change is like, blah, blah, I'm dizzy. And now this one is in the same timeline. But in his current time, so in 2020, 2025-ish, right? Which means by that time, when he reaches Steins Gate, in that year, his memories will overwrite the current Okabe's memories. So everything this Okabe, the original Okabe, did in that timeline is forgotten by the original Okabe that gets into this timeline by now. And then even later, probably, in this world, so he's like, oh, dude, I made it. I'm here. Cool. What happened, you know? Because he doesn't know. He can't remember because he hasn't done it yet. Or well, he hasn't done it himself. Now, because this Okabe right now is just a different backstory. He's forgotten for good, just like the Gamma Okabe, just like any Okabe from any other timeline. Now, later, because this Okabe got a demo as well, or a D-Rhyme from another one, which means there's another Okabe in a farther future. Which means he's going to be like, oh, dude, I made it. And I don't know when exactly the time the time gap is between the two Okabes, but ReZero Okabe will eventually, when ReZero Okabe sends the message to Zero Okabe, which makes Zero Okabe send the message to our Okabe, is going to change timeline for this one. So he sends the message to this Okabe, boom, timeline changed. We're in 2000 whatever later than this one, and he's in the Steins Gate timeline. Whoa, what happened? We're here. This is cool. Overwriting that Okabe's memory. And that's a problem. This Okabe is from a war, right? This Okabe went through a war. Freaking war, dude. And he's in the Steins Gate timeline. In around, let's just say 2025, for example. 15 years after this one reached it. So much happened in that time. Okabe could have done anything. He could have started working, or Kurusu could have started working for CERN, for example. Okabe could have gotten maybe a kid. He could have gotten a kid with Kurusu. Now this one doesn't know, because this one has the memories of his timeline, his history, not that Okabe's history. So this guy gets here in the Steins Gate timeline, looks around, and everything's different. Now that's good for this one. The tragic thing is that every single thing this Okabe did and this one did in those 15 years have been forgotten for good. All the experiences with Kurusu, with his friends, seeing Suzuha get born, for example, this Okabe didn't see any of that. Which to me is really tragic, because he might have a child by now, just like Daru has, and he doesn't even know. He doesn't know what happened. Now, of course, after this, he's going to probably have a good life, but isn't this really sad for the people that live with him? The people, his wife, maybe, his girlfriend, his best friend, his own daughter, maybe? I find that really sad. And that is the tragedy of Okabe's future. Memories being overwritten and 15 years being lost because of that. Now, that is madness. Which fits for a mad scientist, but that's what I wanted to talk about. This is it gets me sad, man. It's still, even though he reaches the Steins Gate timeline, he's not going to remember. Or, well, maybe he does, but gets overwritten. Different, it's basically a different mind. The Okabe that fell in love with Kurisu in this timeline doesn't exist anymore. And now we have to deal with this one, which is, it's still Okabe, but is it the same one? Is it really the Okabe that Kurisu spent all those years with? Making all those memories with that just disappeared? I don't know. That's the discussion. So there's that. Okabe's tragic future. Thanks for watching, guys. 001 here. And I'll see you in the next video. Elp Sai Akonguru.